Well, I think all of our school districts have a challenge. It starts with being able to properly fund our schools, and rural schools. Every school district has different needs. Is what I'm learning out there. I mean, that rural district and this rural district don't have the same needs. Waukee doesn't have the same needs as Adel does. So we need to recognize that it's not just one size fits all out there to begin with. Rural Iowa has some special issues on average or in general. Of course, they have the issue of, in many cases, declining population. So that reduces the number of kids that are in schools, of course. So one of the things we need to make sure we do if we want to help our school districts is we need to have an economic development policy and approach that actually allows people to have better quality jobs with higher incomes all across our state, including in rural Iowa. And we need to make sure that we have the quality of life in rural Iowa that's going to make it easier to retain and recruit young families in those communities. Why don't we have high-speed internet, broadband, in all across our state? So people can actually work where they live rather than have to move someplace to get a job. If we had high-speed internet in a lot of your communities in rural Iowa, we'd have more people living there because they could work anywhere in our country for companies anywhere in this country, right in rural Iowa. They wouldn't have to move to Des Moines or Cedar Rapids or San Francisco or wherever it is. So part of it is we need to create the right kind of economic environment, infrastructure environment, and quality of life that allows and encourages young people to want to stay in rural Iowa, and young people who have left our state for any other reason, to come back to go to work in rural Iowa. One of the things that I want to do is create a program that if rural Iowa, not Des Moines and Cedar Rapids, not the bigger communities, but if communities in rural Iowa are having trouble recruiting teachers, which many of them are, you know that better than I do, and they're having trouble doing that because of housing issues or because of people don't want to live there, then if your local community, your school board, however you get to it, is willing to put up some money, the state will partner with you to have a program to be able to encourage young people to go to work in rural Iowa as teachers, psychiatrists, psychologists, where we have tough jobs to fill. And if the local community is willing to step up and partner with the state, and that person commits to work in rural Iowa in that job for 5 years, we'll pay off their student debt. Because we have a challenge with student debt in our state, and we have a challenge with getting people to go to work in rural Iowa. So my program is to encourage local commitment to help fund those jobs together with the state. I'd rather invest in our workforce than keep throwing out tax credits to companies like Apple that don't need it. Let's use that money to instead invest in people in our state and get them to go to work and live in rural Iowa. That's how we can help start filling more teachers out there. That's how we can get more people living and working out there, starting families and getting people going to the schools. I also think we should have more flexibility in what I call the school formula. My understanding is how that works now is there's about 8 buckets, and the legislature says for each school district, this is how you fill your buckets with this amount of money that you have. And I already described to you, I don't think that any of your school districts are the same. So why should the legislature be telling you how to fill every single bucket in every single school district? I'm more inclined to say, okay, this is the money that you get. It has to be a minimum amount that goes in each of those buckets because they're all valuable buckets, but create some more flexibility for the local school district to decide. Maybe you have a bigger transportation issue. Maybe you have a bigger English language learning issue. Maybe you have a bigger mental health issue, whatever it might be. So you want to move some money into one bucket and out of another because of your local needs. I think we should allow more flexibility for school districts to figure out how we move that money around a little bit, but have some money in each bucket.